And my last question to you is, now that you will officially be retired at the end of May, will you ever have a social media account or on a cell phone?
Zero. Zero chance.
Yes,
right,
yes.
The GOAT himself, Pro Football Hall of Famer, our friend, and soon to be, he's got about another month to the end of May. He's going to still be doing his thing, but he will be officially retiring after perhaps the greatest run in the history of Philadelphia media, the one and only Ray Didinger. Ray, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Hello, guys. I've had my own experiences with the green flies, and it's everything you said it was and more.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, not fun.
Hey, Ray. First thing I want to ask you is this, Ray. Why did you wait so long to decide to retire? I mean, you're 75. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, why is Ray leaving? What happened? I said, the man's 75. He's paid his dues. I said, how many people do you know who are in demand like Ray Didinger is at the age of 75? He wants to enjoy a quality of life. So I have to ask you, what made you wait so long before you decided to bow out?
Because I loved it so much.
Okay.
I loved it so much. Mm-hmm. And I love it now. Yeah. And that's what, even though I feel this is 100% the right decision,
right?
It was still a hard decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I really, I want to. It's important to me that people understand that I'm not being shoved out the door.
Right.
There's no buyout here. There's no sort of take it now or lose it forever. We're going in a different direction. Mm-hmm. I mean, none of that's in play here. I mean, this is really my decision, and I wanted to. Derek, you said it. I mean, 75, man. That's it's not young, and there's stuff I really want to do. I mean, my granddaughter is going into her final year of college, and I haven't seen nearly enough of her field hockey games. Not that I understand that game.
You're right. Yeah.
But I just haven't been there enough. And I still, I'm trying. I desperately want to be able to beat my grandsons at Madden. I mean, there are things that I just need to. They're just things I need to work on. And the only way you can do it is you got to have the time to do it. And that's kind of where I am. Could I have continued on? Sure. I mean, NBC and WIP both made that very clear to me. Mm-hmm. But listen, you guys are both family guys. I mean, you understand that part of it. And I've had just a phenomenal 53-year run, all in this town, where I grew up. I mean, who gets that lucky? Who has that kind of life? And I did. But there's a time now, I think, to just sort of take the time that I have left and sort of enjoy it with my family.
Well said. Derek, you'll appreciate this. So I'm a bit of a Ray historian. I'll admit to being kind of a geek for Ray's career. But I was looking at Ray. So you started covering. I know your first gig was the Delco Times, and you were kind of doing like police stuff and, local, whatever. But really, essentially, 68, 69 is when you started covering the league, right? Around that time?
69.
Okay.
I started doing, I went to the Bulletin. I went to the Bulletin in 69, mostly to cover high schools.
Right.
But the Eagles beat writer, who was then Huey Brown, he would get a day off every now and again.
Right.
And so sometimes they would ask me to fill in for a day here and a day there. But in 1970, Huey retired and I got the beat full time.
Well, so just to put it in perspective, Ray basically during the fall and into the winter hasn't had a Sunday off since Nixon was in his first term. Okay. That's a long time, man. So he deserves any Sundays that he wants to have here. That's how long it's been since Ray's had I know. Sorry, Ray. I'm not trying to make you feel old.
Wow.
Man, but I'm just trying to put it in perspective. That's a lot of work, man.
That's a really good way to put it. I mean, I hadn't even really thought about that. But you're right. I mean, yeah, it was Nixon's first term. It was pre-Watergate. We're going way, way back.
Yeah. Well, I guess. Go ahead, Derek. Go ahead.
So, Ray, will you sit in front of a TV this fall, glued to watching football games, or will you get out, smell the roses, go shopping, go to a lunch, go to movies, maybe go to a flower show, something like that? How do you perceive it?
Yes, all of that. I'm going to try, and I'm right now at a point where I'm trying to play catch up. I'm trying to play catch up. All the stuff that you just mentioned are things that I look forward to. To Rob's point, 53 years, I've never had a weekend.
Wow.
About that. I mean, everybody, you always watch the weather during the week, and the weather person always says, it's going to be great this weekend, weather's going to be perfect this weekend. And I'm thinking, well, that's fine for you, but the weekend isn't the weekend for me. Weekends when I go to work. And so I look forward to being able to do all of those things. And, and my wife, and I've traveled a ton, but it's been, I've been in a million airports, and I've been but every hotel is the same hotel. And most of the time I'm going to a football stadium. So I've seen Texas Stadium, Lambeau Field, Schaefer Stadium, all that stuff. But there's a lot more to the world than that. And, sometime I would like to just get on a plane with my wife and go somewhere and see something new, and you only got so many years to do that. And that's kind of what I want to do. But I will say the one thing I am really looking forward to is going to an Eagles game now and being able to cheer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
I total disclosure. Yeah. I will cheer. Okay.
That's news right there.
No, really. I mean, it's, listen, Rob and I grew up pretty much the same way. Yeah. Just as Eagles fans from the time we could walk. And that was always a part of me. I mean, even all the years I covered them, I was a reporter, but there was still a part of me that was a fan. But for 53 years, I was at Eagles games. And when they would score a touchdown, I would say, all right, Devontae Smith, 18-yard pass from Hurts at 13:33 of the third quarter. I mean, it was all very clinical. I was practically wearing a white robe while I was doing it.
Dr. Didinger, yes.
But now, now when that moment comes, I can jump up and high five the guy next to me, and I haven't had that luxury for all this time, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, hey, don't get any fights in the stands.
Yeah, no fights with you, Ray, rolling around in the stands. We don't need that, okay?
I don't want to see you swinging on somebody in the stands.
Ray tailgating and getting in fights at the Eagles game.
Wouldn't that be a moment, huh?
Yes.
Like this
season,
my
goodness.
When the Fox broadcast says, hey, wait a minute, there seems to be a disturbance in the stands. Let's get a close-up. Who is that man? Wait a minute.
Boy, Ray's really taking this in a different direction, this retirement thing.
I really don't foresee that. I kind of don't think that's going to happen, but who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, you got to stay tuned. Yeah,
man.
But I will say, just staying on that for a minute, Ray. The one time you took the clinical coat off, you let the veil come down, which I think we all found it was so relatable to everybody who's a sports fan, but especially everybody in the Delaware Valley. Look, I can tell you, the night the Eagles won, it was so special for me because I'd never seen it in my lifetime. I had never had the chance to celebrate that with my dad. And I was working for Comcast Sports, the NBC Sports Philadelphia, where you guys were as well. And we were actually coming on right away, right before you guys were, because NBC hadn't signed off yet. Okay. Right. So it was myself and Amy Fadul and Danny Pommel's, but I had like a 30-second window between that ball hitting the ground that Brady threw and the time we were on. I called my dad. My dad's in tears. Okay. And he never thought he was going to see another championship. He was at the game in 60 like you were, against the Packers at Franklin Field. And just that moment, I was beside myself. But to watch it unfold with you and David, your son, after the game where, Dave came up, gave you the big hug, and you guys got emotional. We all felt it, man. Like, and it was perfect that you didn't keep your guard up and you weren't just on the objective reporter for a minute. You were the Southwest Philly, Ridley Park, St. James guy that we all are. I thought that was just an awesome moment.
Yeah. And with you and I and the three of us have talked about that, about how when it happened, the moment that it happened, I was really uncomfortable with it. I was really unsure about it because I knew how people back in Philadelphia were watching this live, and after all these years of always being the professional journalist, reporter guy, to all of a sudden kind of step out of that and become a fan was an odd feeling for me. But, I couldn't very well not hug my son at that moment. And all of those emotions just really came out in a true, I stopped being a reporter and I became a father. And that father-son thing is really powerful. Yeah. And when we hugged, I started to cry because what I said to him, you couldn't hear what I was saying, but what I said to him was that was for Grandpa, meaning my father, who couldn't be with us. And that was when I got really emotional. But the funny thing is, I have people still talk about that. I just had a guy stop me on the street like 3 days ago and say, well, first of all, congratulations on your retirement. I hope you're happy and all that. And I said, I am. And he said, he said, that night in Minneapolis, he said, to me, there were two highlights of that game. There was Philly special, and that was your moment with your son.
Wow.
That's people still approach me and say that. And so, I think what you said, Rob, is 100% true. It was a moment that resonated with everybody because they were feeling and experiencing the same thing. And, I told David, I said, when we were talking about it, I said, we thought we were putting our arms around each other, but we were putting our arms around the whole Delaware Valley.
Wow.
And I think that's how people felt. And I think that's how they remember it.
100%.
Ray, when you started out as a journalist, did you have a definitive goal in mind in terms of what you wanted to achieve, or did you just follow the path that was given to you as it unfolded?
I wanted to be a sports columnist.
Okay.
That was it. I never thought in terms of radio. I never thought in terms of television. I certainly never thought in terms of becoming a filmmaker or a playwright.
Right.
All I wanted to be was, I wanted to be Stan Hochman. I wanted to be Larry Merchant. I wanted to be Sandy Grady. Those are the guys I grew up reading. Every night when the newspaper got dropped on our doorstep, I ripped it open and, looked at that column down the left side with the guy's little headshot in it. To me, I said, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. My horizons never went much beyond newspapering. The other stuff I did do that for 30 years, but all the stuff that happened after that, all the different things I've been able to do, they all just kind of happened. None of that was planned. The only part that was really planned was get that first job out of college at a newspaper and just stay there and just keep grinding out newspaper copy for the next 60 years.
Ray, the thing I'm fascinated, but you also had to have the vision to be able to forecast things and know when the time was right to make a move. And whether that was, going from the Delco Times to the Bulletin to the Daily News to NFL Films to Comcast Sportsnet, WIP, whatever, you've always been a step or two ahead of the curve where things, the newspaper business changed quite a bit. And you were always kind of one step ahead. What do you attribute that to? Was that just your gut, or did you have a pretty good vision and talking to people? Hey, things are changing. I might want to make this move. Like, you always seem to make the move at the right time.
You're giving me too much credit. Most of it was luck. I really feel I was more lucky than anything. But it did kind of work out that way. Every move I made in this course all did seem to be, when I made it, like a year later, I thought, that was the right decision, even though at the time it was not an easy decision. Like when I left, leaving the Delco Times to go to the Bulletin to become a sports writer, that was pretty easy because I loved the Delco Times, but I wanted to be a sports writer. That's really what I wanted to do. I took the job at a news side at the Delco Times because that's all they had.
Yeah.
But I really didn't want to spend 50 years in media courthouse. I wanted to be in a press box somewhere.
Yeah.
So when the Bulletin came calling, that was an easy one. And then when the Bulletin, the Daily News came and recruited me to leave the Bulletin, it was hard because I had been there 12 years and they had given me the opportunity. But things were not going well for the Bulletin. and everybody kind of knew it was on its last legs. And the Daily News was an opportunity for a paper that at that time had like a 300,000 circulation and taken off. So that was an easy call. The toughest one was really going from leaving behind newspapers and going to NFL Films.
Right.
Because I wasn't just changing addresses then. I mean, I was changing professions. You know, I was going from something that I had done for 30 years and felt really comfortable doing, going over to making films, which I'm 50 years old and I had never done. And that was the first time that I felt like, you know, I might just go splat on this. You know, that to me was the biggest leap, but it worked out great. I put my full trust in Steve Sable, you know, a guy who I had known forever. And he assured me, he said, listen, I still remember him saying this because I said, Steve, I mean, it's a great offer, but I don't know. And he said, listen, he said, you know football and you know how to tell a story. The rest of it we can teach you. But you have those two things. And he said, that's the most important. He said, the technology, the work in the editing machines, the picking the music, the cutting the film, we can teach you all that. But you know the game and you know how to tell a story. And with that, I took the job at NFL Films, and it turned out to be 13 tremendous years.
Hey, Ray, 2 questions in one for you. What was your one most favorite story to cover? And also, what was the most difficult story you ever had to cover?
The favorite story, clear, is Super Bowl 52.
Okay.
Which we all shared. I mean, that was an easy one. That was, you know, that was kind of that was the one thing that I had always waited for. You know, I had covered the Phillies World Series. I had covered the Flyers Cups. I had covered the Doc and Moses winning it. But the one thing I really kind of was waiting for was for the Eagles to win a Super Bowl. And, you know, that whole year, that whole run up to that game, you know, we all lived through it. We all know what it's like. And that day, the kind of game that it was that was it for sure. And then coming home and capping it off with the parade and seeing everything that it meant for the city and the people in the city, that's the highlight for sure. The toughest, and this is another easy one, goes back to my very first year at the Delaware County Daily Times. It was 1968, and the Vietnam War was at its absolute peak. And there were a lot of Delco kids that were dying in the jungles. And every time one of them died, the Delco Times had to do a story. And the editor would, there were about five city-side reporters then, and the editor would come to you, and he moved it around. He didn't make one person do them all, but we all got our turn at it. And, you know, like every 4th or 5th day, he would come and put a paper on my desk and say, we need you to go out and talk to the family and do a story about this kid. You know, here I am, I'm just 2 months out of college. I'm a kid myself. And I would pull up in front of the house in Woodland or Clifton Heights or wherever it was. And I would just sit in my car and I would look at that front door. I would sit there for an hour trying to build up the courage to go up to that front door and ring the doorbell and say, I'm Ray Didinger from the Delco Times. I'd like to, if I could I talk to you about your son? You talk about tough. That was tough. And, you know, people would often say to me over the years, it must be, you know, it's really be hard to go into a losing locker room. That must be tough, you know. I said, no, you have no idea.
Wow.
When you've had the assignment of knocking on somebody's door and saying, I'd like to interview you about your son, and have them, and this happened without exception. I always expected somebody to slam the door in my face, which I totally would have understood. Never happened once.
Wow.
Everybody invited me in. They would offer me something to eat or drink. They would sit and they would talk because it was something that they felt like they needed to do. Right. But it was never easy for me. So that was my start in journalism, and it only got easier from there. There was never anything even close to being that hard.
Wow. I never heard you talk about that. That's man, that's fascinating for sure. Well, back to the sports part of it, right? If you exclude obviously the Super Bowl, the 52, for you, the favorite team that you covered, it could be any sport. Oh yeah. Okay.
Broad Street Boys.
Yeah. Clarky, the Hound, and Bernie, and that crew. People may not know you're a huge hockey guy too. You love hockey.
I am. Yeah, I am. I mean, when I was a kid, my second favorite team in town was the Philadelphia Ramblers, who was the minor league hockey team that played at the arena. I used to bug my parents terribly to take me to Ramblers games. And they understood the difference between major league and minor league. Like I didn't. I mean, to me, the Ramblers, they were as big as the Warriors or the Flyers or the Sixers or whoever. Yeah. But my father knew it was minor league hockey. So his enthusiasm wasn't quite equal to mine. Yeah. But the deal we worked out every year was if you get a good report card, we'll take you to a Ramblers game. So I started seeing hockey with the Philadelphia Ramblers at the old arena, and I really liked it. I really loved hockey. And so I was excited. I was excited when the Flyers came to town. My God, NHL franchise right here, 1967, 68. So when it started out, I was a season ticket holder. I was one of the first, just there every single night, sitting. Well, it was easy. You bought a cheap ticket and you could sit wherever you wanted because there was nobody in the building. Right. But so I started out as a fan. But then when they got really good and they made the run to the Cups in 74, 75, I was working at the Bulletin. And so it became a big story. Mm-hmm. And even though I was the football writer, it was off season for football. Right. And so they threw the whole sports department out there to follow the Flyers. So I was with them in both of those Cup runs. And that was great fun. I mean, the guys on the team were terrific. I mean, there were all these young guys from Moose Jaw and Smithers. Flin Flon, and they couldn't believe what was happening. Yeah. They were actually doing this, and the city was embracing them, and it was really a fun ride, and they were such a good bunch of guys, and the story just got more improbable with each series, and then when they finally won it, and then you had that parade the day after when 2 million people filled the streets of Center City. It was just amazing, and it was fun. And what it really did was it really changed everything in Philadelphia, because at that point in the early 70s, going back a long way here, but in the early 70s, things were not good in Philadelphia. Yeah. The city wasn't doing real good economically. All the sports teams were in bad shape. The Phillies were awful. The Eagles were really bad. The Sixers had just come off the worst season in NBA history, 9-73. And they weren't even trying to lose. Okay, I mean they were just losing on the level. And everybody, if you were a sports fan or just anybody in Philadelphia, you just felt like a loser. You just felt like a loser, and it was a terrible time to be around. And then all of a sudden comes this team, playing this unfamiliar game with these unfamiliar guys, and all of a sudden it just lifted the whole city. Huh. And when they won the Cups, it changed everything. I mean, right after that, right on the heels of that, it was when the Eagles hired Dick Vermeil and the Sixers signed Dr. J, and the Phillies signed Pete Rose. And all of a sudden, everything changed, And by the end of the decade that has started out so badly, by the end of the decade, they were calling it the City of Winners. Yeah. That was the year that all the teams went to the championship round. So the Flyers, I mean, they were fun. They were fun at the time, and it was fun to enjoy the Cups. But what I kind of think of is how they kind of changed the whole karma of the city. And I think kind of put all the sports franchises on the path to being successful.
You were blessed to spend your long, illustrious career right here in your own backyard. Did you ever toy with the notion of relocating to another city? Was there ever an offer out there that tempted you and you had to, it was really an inner struggle whether or not you wanted to go or you were going to stay right here at home?
I had offers, but I had newspaper offers, New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, Dallas. I didn't even entertain that one. But I had some newspaper offers. But my thinking, Derek, was why would I leave one newspaper job in a place that I love to go take a newspaper job in some place that I don't necessarily love? Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to stay in newspapering, I'm going to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
The one time I came really close was 1974. NFL Properties offered me a job in their Los Angeles office. It was NFL Properties / NFL Publishing. And they were expanding. That was when the whole NFL Properties thing was really kind of exploding.
Mm-hmm.
And they were growing like crazy. And they opened this whole publishing operation out in Los Angeles. And they offered me the number 2 job in the company. And I was just a kid. I was like 25, 26. And they flew me out there. They showed me what was going to be my corner office in this big high rise overlooking Wilshire Boulevard. And it was tempting. It was really tempting. But when it came right down to it, I couldn't leave Philly. I just couldn't. And the thought of going to work for the league and in an operation that was just sort of taken off and being football literally 24/7, that really appealed to me. But I just couldn't bring myself to leave Philadelphia. And I kind of felt like, while that'll be fun, and I probably could do it, I just feel like I'm a writer, and I felt like my place was really in newspapering. So with great regret, I turned it down. But I think looking back on it, it was absolutely the right decision, because if I had gone there and worked for the league, none of the stuff that's happened in the last 40 years would have happened. So, kind of to what Rob's point was about always, every time you kind of made a move, it proved to be the right move. That's an example of the one I didn't do, but I think that was the right decision too.
Okay.
Ray, we all know what a gentleman, how fair you are in the way that you report and just the way you carry yourself. But I would guess over the years, you've had some contentious relationships with the people you've covered, coach, player, whatever.
Fair to say.
Can you give us an example of somebody and maybe a run-in or anything like that? Maybe somebody who you butted heads with, who I don't know how it is now with you and them, but like how it was at the time.
Actually, there are a couple of good ones who are guys that I've long since patched things up with. But Larry Boa was one, and Larry Boa and I were nose to nose, and I thought we were going to start punching in the Phillies clubhouse in 1978. And that was, that actually became kind of a thing. It actually became like a national wire service story that that Boa and I had to be separated. Can you imagine? had to be separated in the clubhouse. I had Rully Carpenter and Larry Christensen had me and literally threw me out of the locker room.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my! I still remember that. It was August 1978, and it was the culmination of a lot of stuff. The relationship between the media and the Phillies at that time was not good, and things were just kind of building up, and we knew it was going to blow up one night. I just didn't think I was going to be in the middle of it, but I was, and so that was what it was. And the other one was Dick Vermeil. We are really good friends now, and have a lot of respect for each other. Or at least I certainly have respect for him. But in his rookie year here, it was not good because he was a rookie head coach in the NFL, and I was still a pretty young beat guy trying to find my own way.
Right.
And we were just butting heads, and it was. I remember one time that I had written a story that really got Dick upset. And I walked into the dining hall at lunchtime at Widener, which was where they were then. And I walk in there, and there's the whole team. They're all sitting having lunch, all the coaches, all the secretaries. And I come walking in very innocently, and Dick sees me, and he has the Philadelphia Bulletin in his hand.
Oh, boy.
And he comes straight across the dining hall, waving the newspaper, and he ripped me a new one. Right there in front of everybody. And you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And it ended up with him just throwing the paper on the floor at my feet and storming out of the dining hall. And there I am, and everybody in the room is looking at me. And I'm just standing there with that day's edition of the Bulletin lying at my feet. And so that was a moment, all right. But he and I talked it out after it was over. And what it really came down to was, and he wasn't wrong, and I wasn't wrong. It's just that we were there doing two different things.
Yeah.
He was coaching this football team, and he said to me, he said, "You're sabotaging my program." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "I spend all day trying to build these guys up and convince them that they're a good team and that they can win and they can compete in the NFC." And Rob, as you know, he was taking over a really bad team. But he said, part of my job as the coach is to build these guys up and convince them that they can compete and they convince them that they can win, because they hadn't won in 15 years.
Yeah.
And he said, and to win, it has to start with believing you can win. And he said, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So I spend all day trying to build these guys up and convince them they can compete and convince them they can win. He said, and then they pick up your paper in the afternoon, right, and they read your story, and you're telling them the exact opposite. You're just telling them that they don't have this and they don't have that. And so you're tearing down I spend all day building this thing up, and then you come in and you tear it down. And what I said was, look, you're doing what you have to do as a coach. I understand that.
Right.
But you have to understand that as a reporter, I'm doing what I have to do, which is write about what I see. Right. And I still remember saying that. I said, Dick, what I see is a team that's going to be lucky to win 4 games. Okay. But I fully respect what you're trying to do, but you kind of have to respect what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. So over time, the team improved, which helped. But our relationship kind of grew to the point where I think there was mutual understanding.
That's very cool. Hey, Derek, I know before you jump in with your next one, Ray, I want to let people see this, because Ray, not all that long ago, won the Reds Bagnell Award in Atlantic City at Ocean Casino Resort, and I wanted the folks to see this tribute that they played to you, and we'll start off with a still of a young Ray Didinger. But Ray, take a look.
Young Raymond Reed Didinger was 7 when he first heard of the legendary Francis Reds Bagnell sitting in the corner of his grandfather's bar. The award-winning former columnist for the Philadelphia Bulletin and Daily News, Emmy Award winner at NFL Films and Pro Football Hall of Famer, has been a trusted conduit to football fans for over 5 decades. Author of 12 books, including Finished Business, My 50 Years of Headlines, Heroes and Heartaches, Didinger made the successful transition from print to the airwaves as radio and TV broadcaster for 94 WIP and NBC Sports Philadelphia. The Maxwell Football Club is proud to honor Ray Didinger with the Francis Reds Bagnell Award for outstanding lifetime contributions to football.
Right, that was a heck of
that's awesome.
That was a great video. The shot at you as a kid in your grandfather's bar in Southwest Philly, that was sweet, man. They did a really good job on that.
Yeah, and that was really the bar, and that was really my grandfather behind it.
Wow.
I should point out, he did not shoot that moose. Okay, that was a gift. Okay, my grandfather would never harm an animal, but the moose head was a gift. I didn't want anybody to think that. I didn't want to think anyone think my grandfather was down in Cobbs Creek Park cutting down moose.
Duly noted. Yeah, duly noted.
Yeah, okay, fair. As long I want to make that. I'll put that on the record.
That's on the record. Yeah.
Hey, Ray, as you sit here today and you look back on 53 years in the industry, does it seem like it was a long 53 years, or does it seem like it just flew by?
Blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Blink of an eye. Honest to God, that's how it feels. Yeah. Since I made the announcement on Sunday about retiring, I've had so many people write, call, send emails. Thank God I'm not on Facebook or Twitter. I can't imagine what that would be like. But just in my own limited little world, this tsunami of good wishes that have come in has been really overwhelming. And what it's made me do is kind of sit back, and something I've rarely done is just sort of look back at the whole thing. And that's when I kind of have the awareness of what you're talking about. My God, it was 53 years.
Isn't that something?
But I talk about, or I think about, 1970, 71, 72, my first couple Eagles training camps. It doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it so clearly. that it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But I think that what that kind of tells you is how much I loved what I did.
Sure.
I mean, it never. I always remember what Marv Levy, the great Buffalo Bills coach, once said. So I've spent my life coaching football, but I don't feel like I ever worked a day in my life. And I think that's kind of how I feel. I mean, this 53 years is an awfully long time to do anything, but it didn't feel like it because I loved it so much. That was true from day one for sure, because this is all I ever wanted to do. And getting this job was really like a dream come true. Yep. And it stayed that way. It stayed that way, even though my life had many twists and turns, and I kind of went from here to there and doing this and doing that. I still feel the same love for what I do as I did way back then, and also tremendous gratitude that I've been able to do this, and better yet, to do it in my own hometown. Yep. I mean, who gets that kind of opportunity? Who gets that lucky? I don't know of a single guy in our business that's had the good fortune to do the things I've done and never have to uproot. Yeah. It's a very, very rare thing. And one thing I can say is, honestly, I never took it for granted. I mean, I never, not a single day that I didn't feel lucky for being who I was, where I was, and what I was doing. I felt blessed every single day.
Well, Ray, we've taken up a lot of your time. I did want to ask you one last one. I mean, you
Sure.
got the ultimate. You saw the Reds Bagnell. We see the Emmys behind you. You've gotten quite a few awards, all deservedly so. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame, for someone who loved and loves the game the way that you did, and was your family vacations when you were a kid were to Hershey to go to Eagles camp, literally. What did that mean for you when you were inducted with the greats of the great?
Hard to put it into words, Rob. Hard to put it into words. My parents had retired at that point. And they had moved to Florida. So when I called them to tell them that I had gotten a call that I was going to be part of that year's induction class, it was 1995. They said, "We're there. We're coming." And so they came up, and they spent that whole weekend with me, the whole enshrinement weekend with me, with my wife, with our kids, with everyone. And it was truly a family celebration. I remember the night of the enshrinement, after the whole day and everything. So we go out, we're having dinner that night as a family. And I said to my father, to everyone, I said, "Wow, what a year this has been for you guys, Mom and Dad," because it was the year of their 50th wedding anniversary. So I said, "What a year this has been for you, that and then this." And my father said, "Oh, 50th wedding anniversary, that's nothing. Look, we're in the Hall of Fame." 50th wedding anniversary. Oh, come on, we're in Canton. This is right. You should have seen the withering look.
Oh my goodness!
Now, look, they stayed together. It did not drive a wedge in their relationship. Right. But at that moment, it was. I mean, it got a huge laugh at the table because as soon as my father said it, he knew what he had said and kind of regretted it. But I think it just sort of spoke to what that whole thing meant to my family. Because Rob, you're right. My family they were deeply invested in football and all sports, but mostly football, to the point that we spent our summer vacations at Eagles training camp. So for them to be there and see their only child, take his place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and to be there with, the Unitises and the Otto Grahams and the people like that was really, really wonderful stuff. I enjoyed it. As when I think back on that weekend, I think more in terms of watching them enjoy it as much as I did how I enjoyed it myself.
Well, Ray, I have two quick questions for you. One of them is, what would you tell young aspiring journalists in terms of how to pursue their careers?
Good question. Rob teaches classes, and he's had me come in and speak to his class on a few occasions.
Sure.
And that always comes up because, listen, they're college students. They're trying to take that next step.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. That's
There's the textbook.
That's the textbook. That was the textbook for Rob's class. And that always came up. And, you know, the one thing I would say to them was, if this is what you really feel like you want to do, if you in your heart of hearts feel like this is the path that you want to follow, go for it. Go for it. But with full understanding that it's not going to be easy.
Right.
You know, and listen, you guys know, getting that first job, getting that first opportunity, you know, getting your foot on that first rung of the ladder, that's hard, you know, and well, not very often, almost every time, it's not exactly what you want. Exactly. You know, it's not exactly where you want to start. It's not exactly the amount of money you want to make, but it's your start, and you have to start somewhere. But you also have to have the confidence in yourself that you can get from there to where you ultimately want to be. So if you really feel that, if you're ambivalent about it, and well, maybe I'll be an accountant, maybe I'll be this, fine, then consider all of those options. But if you really believe, and people that tend to gravitate to our business do believe it, that no, this is for me, this is what I want to do, then if that's what you believe, then go for it. And, you know, understand it's going to be not easy to start out, but you got to pursue it. Otherwise, you don't want to be 10 years down the road and saying, doing something else, you know, paying your bills and all of that, but feeling, oh, God, I wonder what would have happened if I had tried to do it. Don't be that guy. You know, go for it and give it your best.
And my last question to you is, now that you will officially be retired at the end of May, will you ever have a social media account or on a cell phone?
Zero. Zero chance. No, hey, listen, if I've gone this far, actually working in this business and never gone down that road, I'm not going there now. You know, I'm still going to be around. I mean, I'm not leaving town. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not. Like a lot of it used to be that old baseball writers always used to, when they retired, they all moved to Clearwater. I mean, it was like the Swallows going back to Capistrano. If you were an old baseball writer and you retired, you caught the first plane to Clearwater, you know, and did the 4 o'clock, you know, early bird at Denny's. That became your life. Not for me. I mean, I've always lived in Philadelphia, and I've been here all this time, and this is where I'm going to stay. And I couldn't imagine moving or living anywhere else. So I'll be around. And, you know, if you see me, you know, walking the bulldog through Rittenhouse Square and you want to come up and talk about Jalen Hurts, please don't be shy.
Well, the reason I asked you about the cell phone was when we were talking about you coming on the show today a few days ago, I brought up a story that when I worked with you at NBC Sports Philadelphia, I believe, now you correct me if I'm wrong and you fill in the blanks, you were heading up the Northeast Extension, I believe going to Lehigh, and your car broke down, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody helped you because they recognized who you were. How did that story go?
You're 100% right.
See, I see. I do it.
No. Your memory is spot on.
Yes.
You even had the place right. I was on the Northeast Extension on my way to Lehigh for a day of Eagles practice.
Yep.
And my car broke down. And this is the moment that everybody used to tell me about. You know, okay, you know, no cell phone, but one of these days, you're going to need it and you're going to want it. So I'm standing on the side of the road and I'm thinking, oh, well, here we are. You know, our car's broken down. Now what do I do? And a guy in a truck goes driving by and like hits the brakes, like on the Northeast Extension of the turnpike, hits his brakes and starts backing up.
Oh, no.
And gets out of his truck and said, "You're Ray Didinger." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You need a cell phone." and gave me his cell phone, and that's how I called AAA.
Oh my God.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
That's awesome. Ray, we've kept you long enough, man. We sincerely appreciate you hopping on with us. The stories are just phenomenal, and nobody deserves to enjoy and smell the roses more than you do in retirement. So we wish you all the best. We're looking forward to still seeing you around, but we wish you all the best. And it's been what a run. What a run, Ray. Congratulations.
It's not off. Yeah, it's not often I get to say you're a treasure. You are a treasure, and it has been my honor to work with you and to get to know you over the last 2 decades plus.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, it's funny when, I mean, you guys have interviewed athletes, hundreds of them, just like I have. And when you talk to a retired athlete, okay, the first thing you always ask is, you know, what do you miss? And what's the first thing guys always say? Oh, I miss the locker room. I miss the guys. You know, it's not about the competition. It's not about the winning. It's not about the glory. Not about the money, even though we kind of know it is. But what the first thing I always say is, man, I miss that locker room. You know, I miss being in the locker room. I miss the camaraderie. Yep. And we kind of had that too, you know, in our business. They have the locker room, we have the press box, you know, and that before the game kind of give and take, you know, busting each other's chops, having some fun. That was such a big part of what this has been for the last 50 years. I'm going to miss that terribly, you know, and you two guys, we've been friends a long time, and you've been part of that whole part of my life. So, I mean, there's some parts of the work that kind of were what they were, and I'm not going to miss some of that. And I'm not going to miss the politics and some of the other nonsense that goes on. But those interpersonal relationships with the guys you work with and guys you respect and really like, not having that on a regular basis is one thing I'm going to miss. And you two guys are two of the absolute best. And, you know, I'm still going to be around. We'll still see each other. But I just want to thank you for many, 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 many great memories.
Ray, the pleasure was ours. I can tell you that.
Indeed.
Thank you, and enjoy the best to you and Maria and your family. And
absolutely.
Enjoy. Thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you, guys. This was a blast. Thanks very much.
Take care. All right. The great Ray Didinger. How about, boy, Gunner? That was fun.
We could have kept going, but we didn't want to hold him up to it. We held him for what, 47 minutes?
Yeah, like
I blame you for this.
I had 100 more questions, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to take this whole afternoon up. I mean, no. Man, that was fun. That was fun. And that's what I love about what we do here. You know, we're not beholden to having somebody on for 5 minutes. We do what we want to do. And I think, you know, and I appreciate everybody's response, everybody in the comment section. Thank you. Because we will keep doing it. We got Brian Dawkins tomorrow. I mean, we're going to go from Howie Roseman to Ray Didinger to Brian Dawkins in a 3-day span. That's
absolutely
pretty strong. All right. Let's